Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Friday, November 22nd, 2019. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Dr. Mike O'Neill, the best dentist that there is. Give him a call. Become his next new patient. 317-849-2933. Before we get to Harry with his questions, the Indiana Pacers, they got a game coming up Saturday night, tomorrow night against the Orlando Magic. They're 8-6 on the season right now, are the Pacers. Let's talk to Pacers coach Nate McMillan. Nate, Pacers with some extended time off a little bit earlier. Why the extra day?
We had an extra day. Felt like our guys needed that day to rest and recover with the number of injuries and the amount of minutes that guys have been playing.
You getting healthier? Guys going to be back tomorrow?
We have a few guys that are questionable for tomorrow's game.
Malcolm?
He's doubtful.
Okay. Is there a timeline? Is there a prognosis for him?
No, there isn't. He's just doubtful for tomorrow's game. He did a little work on the floor today, but we'll see how he feels tomorrow.
Fun to coach a game like you guys had against the Nets?
Yeah, anytime you win a ball game, it's fun. But I thought our guys, they've been playing hungry and, getting opportunities to play. They've taken advantage of that, and it was a good win to, go into Brooklyn and play tough like that on the road.
The day off, did you take a day off, or what do you do on a day off?
I definitely took a day off. We had lockout. The first day was a lockout. Second day was a get what you need day. But we all needed some time off to just get away and get some rest and relax.
What do you do?
Rest and relax.
Just sit and watch TV?
Well, I get away from film, video, and do some family things.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Nate. Yeah. All right, let's talk to TJ McConnell. How'd you like the days off?
I said this yesterday. It's very rare you see as many days off in a row as we've gotten. And I thought the coaching staff was smart with the amount of days they gave us off, and it was good to just kind of get a relaxation day and next day kind of come in and get what you need and get back after that. So I think the coaching staff did a great job of that.
What do you do on a day off?
For me, watch TV, have a cup of coffee, spend time with my wife and my dog, and kind of reflect on the game that we played and think and visualize what you can do better.
How you feeling?
Good. Getting back into the swing of things. It's been a while where I've missed a couple games, so body's just getting back into going through contact and running up and down.
Is that tough for you to sit and watch guys?
Yeah, I mean, as a competitor, you want to be out there helping your team any way you can, but when you're not, you got to be a great teammate and cheer them on and just give them that energy.
What was the thing in Brooklyn? I mean, that was kind of an ass whooping against the Nets. What was the thing that you guys did well to bring that result?
I thought we executed our defensive game plan, and we really shared the ball on offense, took good shots, moved it, and executed on that end as well.
Tomorrow night, Magic, they're kind of banged up too.
Yeah, I think we're living proof of you can't take teams that are banged up lightly. Half of our roster is down at one point, and we're still going out there and battling and winning games. So no matter if they're resting half their team or they have everyone healthy, we're going to be ready to go.
Thanks, TJ. Appreciate it. The game tomorrow night between the Pacers and the Magic, 7 o'clock at Bankers Life Fieldhouse on Fox Sports Indiana with Chris and Quinn. If you want to listen on the radio, you can do that on 107.5 The Fan. You've got Mark and Slick with that call. Harry has questions. I've got answers. We do it almost every Friday. How you doing, Harry?
Oh, I couldn't be better, Gandilran. Wonderful to join you again, because every time I'm on, that means it's Friday. And while every day in heaven is a Friday, it's wonderful to spend these Fridays with you. Let's get right to the questions. Every day in heaven is a Friday. Sounds like maybe a new book by Mitch Albom, doesn't it? At any rate, number one, did the lack of replay on the fumble cost the Colts last night's game?
No, that didn't cost the Colts the game. Malik Hooker's blown coverage, that cost the game. T.Y. Hilton's drops, those cost the game. Jacoby Brissett, his inability to find a receiver on that 4th and 7 where he tucked it, ran, and didn't get to the first down marker. He only got 6 yards. That cost him. The refs with Mark Glowinski, a hold that was not a hold, that cost him. The lack of replay, they reviewed the thing in New York. They looked at it. They could not find an angle that showed that the Colts were covered. It was a fumble. They ruled that the call on the field stood, and that was that the Texans recovered that football. Deshaun Watson got his own fumble back. Maybe Darius Leonard recovered, maybe not, but none of the video showed that it happened. So, and the thing that pissed me off about the whole thing is you had more than 50 seconds elapse between the end of that play and then the snap of the ball, which followed a timeout for the Texans. So it went from, I think, 148, then down to 50 seconds at a time where every second was precious. One of the things that pissed me off, too, was the timeout with 3 minutes left. The clock is stopped, and for some reason, the Colts decide they got to call timeout. They didn't like the defensive look, but you've got to have alternatives. You need a quarterback who's like, okay, I'm going to check into this play. I'm checking out of this and into that. Because in the end, what they did didn't work anyway. If you don't have wide receivers who are weapons, you're going to have trouble winning in the NFL. You had Jacoby Brissett throw for less than 150 yards last night. The Colts, you should never lose, ever, in the NFL if you run for 175 and you don't turn the ball over. It's almost impossible. This is interesting to me, though. It's not the first time this season that it's happened. It happened in the season opener in Los Angeles against the Chargers. The Colts ran for more than 200 that day and didn't turn the ball over and still lost. That is really, really, really difficult. But if you've got a quarterback who isn't able to post any kind of gain throwing the football of greater than 14 yards during an entire game, what the hell are you doing? That secondary for the Texans was decimated by injury, and still the Colts couldn't do anything with it. Now, granted, you had like 60% of T.Y. Hilton. You didn't have Devin Funchess. You didn't have Paris Campbell. So your weaponry is a little bit exhausted by injury. But holy cow, you've got to find a way to move the football and score more than those 17 points. You had the ball 9 times is all. 9 possessions, 2 touchdowns, a field goal, 5 punts, and then that last possession where they turned it over on downs. You are not going to win football games doing that. The Colts, they have an interesting decision to make regarding Jacoby Brissett.
Which brings me to my next question. Way to tee it high and let it fly for me there, Goodell Reds. Number 2, is Jacoby Brissett the long-term answer for the Colts at quarterback?
I'll tell you this. The Colts would love for Jacoby Brissett to be the long-term answer at quarterback. They really like him as a guy. They really like him as a leader. Now, is he a quarterback who's going to win you football games, or is he kind of a placeholder who, when everything is right around him, is able to win football games? He throws a pretty good long ball. He's not very mobile in the Deshaun Watson kind of sense, right? He's not able to go scampering and pick up a bunch of yards. He's not able to do that. We saw the difference last night between those two guys. Brissett, he ran for the 1 touchdown, but he is not fast. He can move in the pocket. He is very strong in the pocket. He's kind of at his best. He's a Ben Roethlisberger type guy, a hell of a leader, really tough to bring down in the pocket. He's got feet that can move within the pocket and escape pressure. But if you get him out in space, he's not going to be able to outrun linebackers, almost any linebacker in the NFL. Jacoby Brissett is not a guy who is going to win you football games, but at the same time, he's not a guy who's going to lose you football games either. So if you put together a whole bunch of good around him, you can win football games with Jacoby Brissett. But is he one of those elite level quarterbacks that you can kind of build around? Is he a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees? No, obviously he's not. But what he is a guy who isn't going to give it away. He didn't turn the ball over last night. That's a good thing. But at the same time, The Colts weren't able to do anything with the football that allowed them to score enough points to win. So you've got to make a decision if you're Chris Ballard. You either ride with this guy, they've got him under contract for one more year, and then you're either going to have to sink a bunch of money into Jacoby Brissett, or you got to draft and build at that position with somebody who may or may not be the guy you're looking for. It is really, really hard, as you can tell, looking around the NFL. How many quarterbacks in the NFL would you be comfortable with as a replacement for Jacoby Brissett? Mitch Trubisky was taken a couple of years ago with the second overall pick. Would you want Mitch Trubisky as your quarterback in place of Jacoby Brissett? The answer is no, right? How about Sam Darnold? Would you rather have Sam Darnold or Jacoby Brissett? So really what you got is a guy who is not going to lose you games, but he's not going to win you games. He's not a great quarterback, but he's not a bad level starting quarterback. If you were going to rank quarterbacks in the NFL, you'd probably have Brissett somewhere 15th-ish. If you build a bunch of great stuff around him, maybe you can win a championship with him. I don't know, but you got to have greatness around him.
Number 3, can the Hoosiers of Indiana beat Michigan tomorrow?
Not only can Indiana win tomorrow, Indiana will win tomorrow against Michigan. I don't care about the 9.5 points. All right, Indiana is going to win that game, and I'll tell you why. Because last weekend, Michigan beat the hell out of Michigan State. Next weekend, they're looking forward to playing Ohio State. This weekend, they got to go down to Bloomington, one of the least sexy places to play in the Big Ten. If you're a visiting team, you're going to Bloomington, you're like, oh, we're going to Bloomington. Then you factor in the weather. It's going to be rainy and 38 degrees at kickoff. How about that? You want to play football in that? Nobody wants to play football in that. Michigan's going to go down there. This game is a massive pain in the ass for them. And for Indiana, Indiana's going to be playing in front of bowl CEOs like the guy who runs the Music City Bowl. Indiana would love to play in Nashville in the Music City Bowl. They'd love to play in the Outback Bowl down in Tampa. They've got an opportunity to fortify their resume in order to play in those games. They're already going to a bowl. With a win tomorrow against Michigan, they do two things. Number one, you put yourself in a position for a hell of a good bowl. And you show people that you can beat the big boys in the Big Ten. And that's one of the boxes that Tom Allen has not been able to check yet. In his 2 seasons previous to this one, Indiana finished 5-7. They've shown an ability to beat teams like Rutgers and Maryland and Nebraska and Northwestern, the doormats of the Big Ten. So Indiana's no longer a doormat, but what they haven't shown is an ability to beat the big boys. And they really haven't been able to do that since like the late 80s when they last beat Ohio State and Michigan. Indiana has a chance tomorrow to signal to everybody in the Big Ten and everybody nationally that they're not a doormat anymore, that they are a legitimate Big Ten program making strides toward being one of those teams that people may not want to come to Bloomington to play.
Number 4, if Indiana, or in your mind, when Indiana beats Michigan tomorrow, is that it for Jim Harbaugh as the coach at Michigan?
I think it is. If you're Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, a program like that, and you get beat by Indiana, I think that turns your fan base. All of a sudden, a fan base in Michigan that looks at Michigan and says, you know what, Jim Harbaugh is doing an okay job. Every single year, they feel like they've got a chance to contend in the Big Ten East and make it to Indy for the college football championship, at least the conference college football championship. It hadn't happened yet with Michigan. You lose to Indiana, and you show that you're backsliding. The momentum is no longer moving forward. The momentum is moving backward. And I think that turns the fan base at Michigan against Jim Harbaugh. And if they lose to Indiana tomorrow, unless they beat Ohio State the following week, I think Jim Harbaugh is going to hear footsteps and that he's going to resign. I do think that and you're right, when Indiana wins tomorrow against Michigan, that will be it for Jim Harbaugh. I think he's going to resign before the tide really turns against him. And that's what Indiana's playing for too, right? Nobody likes Jim Harbaugh. There's one campus that has any love for him whatsoever, and that's his home campus. Everywhere else, he's loathed, and that makes sports fun. I'm not being critical. I like that Jim Harbaugh is a guy who doesn't mind being disliked. It makes sports a lot more fun to watch. It makes sports a lot more fun to participate in, at least as fans. If you dislike a coach, you'll watch a game featuring that team because you want to root against that team and you hope that they lose. That makes it interesting, and that's what Jim Harbaugh brings to Michigan. You know what? As much as I'd like to see him get fired, and as much as I really dislike Jim Harbaugh for a variety of reasons, I'd kind of hate to see him out at Michigan because he makes the Wolverines a hell of a lot of fun to root against.
Number 5. Why is sports a much better focus for our attention than politics? Oh, I like that question.
Because with sports, you've got winners and losers. It's just that easy. At the end of the day, you look at the scoreboard and you say, oh, this team won and that team lost. And either it makes you happy or it makes you unhappy. With politics, it's never that cut and dried. Politics is entirely gray area. With sports, there are winners, there are losers. There are people who build programs with character and build programs through honesty and diligence. And there are people who build programs through skullduggery and cheating and are win at all costs. And you can choose which you want to root for. With politics, everybody presents themselves as something that they are not. They present themselves as the most delectable versions of themselves. And that makes it exhausting to participate in or to watch and witness politics and government in action. It drives people crazy, and for really good reasons. Sports, it doesn't drive you crazy. Sports, you watch, you see Darius Leonard, it looks like he recovers a fumble. They don't call it. You know what? You go to bed, you get a good night's sleep. It's just that easy. Darius Leonard might not get a good night's sleep, but we get a good night's sleep, and we know that everything's going to work out just fine. And when we wake up in the morning, life is going to be good. The sun's going to shine, and off we go with our day. With politics and government, it's a whole lot more serious, and it's a whole lot more difficult for us to figure out who's righteous and who's not. At least it used to be. As we look at it now, who seems righteous? Anyone?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this. As I sit in one of the establishments which I frequent up here in the city of Chicago, I see sports on TV, and I can follow sports on TV in a bar. As I watch hearings on TV, I can't tell what the hell's going on in a bar. That makes it easy. If you can watch it in a bar, I'm in. If you cannot watch it in a bar, I'd rather have something else on TV. Oh, thanks for having me, Ganilretz, as always. Hey, another Beeman Coke for Dutchie, would you? Dutchie, she enjoys her Beeman Cokes as I drink. I don't go brown. When I go brown, I frown. Clear, I'm in the clear. I think that's how it goes. All right, Ganilretz, have a great weekend.
All right, Harry, you too. Have a great weekend. And to everybody listening, have a great weekend. We got a lot of semi-state games in high school football going on this weekend. You've got college basketball this weekend. Butler tonight hosts Morehead State at Henkel Fieldhouse. Tomorrow night, Purdue, they've got Jacksonville State. Indiana off this weekend in basketball. They play Monday against Louisiana Tech at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Football tomorrow, I'm telling you, Indiana is going to beat Michigan. You're going to see and you're going to say, by God, that Sterling knows things. And we'll talk about it Monday. Breakfast with Kent on Facebook Live at 8 o'clock straight up. And then Periscope Live, which is accessible, of course, on Twitter. That at about 8:15, depending on how long I take doing the Facebook Live version. It's a show so nice. We do it twice. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Give them a call, 317-849-2933. Join me Monday morning.